5. Marry. Like many women who choose plural marriage, I idealized the nature of sister wives. I was eager for my first sister wife to be my friend, in addition to being married to my husband. I never wanted to be in a situation with a sister wife who didn't want to associate with the rest of the family. As I imagined it, it would be the most natural thing in the world for my sister wives and me to form instantaneous friendships. Paradoxically, I am reserved, but at times can be opinionated, which makes me cautious about quickly forging close relationships with women. In forming friendships and relationships, I need to feel safety and trust with the other person before I feel I can open up to a deep relationship. But when I do, I value them deeply and expect these friendships to last. When Cody and I entered into our first courtship with a young woman we'd been introduced to at a church gathering, I was excited. She and I became close friends right away. This was unusual for me, and I immediately took it as a sign that Cody and I were destined to marry her. This girl and I loved hanging out together and spent lots of time on our own without Cody. As I saw it, we were on our way to achieving the sister-wife ideal I'd always imagined. Though sometimes I got jealous of the afternoons she and Cody went off on their own to develop their relationship, I did my best to deal with those feelings maturely. I felt confident that the three of us had a wonderful future together, and I was certain that while she would be a great wife to Cody, she would remain one of my best friends. But things didn't work out. I was devastated when the courtship soured and she left. Back then we were all so young. She was only 18, and Cody and I were in our first year of marriage, so we may have mistaken a crush for love. Nevertheless, I felt personally betrayed. I had lost one of my closest friends, a woman I imagined would have been a perfect sister wife. We managed to put our failed courtship behind us. Cody and I were still the fun-loving, goofy, and wildly romantic couple we'd always been, but we felt that adding a wife to our family was something we needed to accomplish sooner rather than later in order to make good on our commitment to the principle of plural marriage. This was a promise we made to each other when we married. As much as we loved each other and had a wonderful, stable relationship, we knew that plural marriage was our destiny. I'm not sure when it became apparent to me that Janelle wanted to join our family. Of course, since she had once been married to my brother, I had known her for several years. We had a cordial relationship. Even after her divorce, I thought of her as a sister-in-law, and it never occurred to me that she would one day be a sister wife. If Cody had feelings about Janelle that were anything other than platonic, he hadn't discussed them with me. I knew that he valued her intellect and her work ethic, and he had a deep respect for the way she conducted herself on an emotional level. I was surprised when Janelle approached Cody and asked to come into our family, but not unpleasantly so. After all, she was close to my family already, and she was one of the people Cody and I associated with on a fairly regular basis. So it didn't seem too far of a stretch to imagine her as a permanent fixture in our lives. I have to admit, part of me was relieved that Cody and Janelle weren't a conventionally romantic couple. I didn't feel that Janelle's presence in our lives in any way threatened the love Cody and I shared. Their bond was intellectual, which made it easier for me to accept Janelle. If they had been one of those gushy, lovey-dovey couples who melt at the sight of each other, if they had been the same kind of couple Cody and I were, I would have had a lot more trouble making peace with the idea of her as a sister wife. I immediately saw that Cody and I would have one type of relationship, the passionate, romantic one we'd always had, while he and Janelle would have another, something more cerebral. This seemed both totally acceptable to me and easier to handle as our first move into plural marriage. After nearly 3 years of monogamous marriage, I was ready for a sister wife, or so I thought. I was happy for Cody that he'd found someone to satisfy his intellectual curiosity, and I was happy for Janelle to have chosen, and to have been chosen by, such a wonderful man after her failed relationship with my brother. One thing that was difficult was the timing of Cody and Janelle's wedding. They planned it to take place on my birthday, thinking that it wouldn't be a big deal. Looking back, I realize a lot of my issues with their marriage were really because I thought they were being extremely insensitive. Birthdays are important to me. I felt like I was being completely overlooked, even when they offered to celebrate their future anniversaries on a different day. It floored me that my husband would think this was a good idea, but it baffled me even more to know that a woman who was wanting to join our family would even think for a minute to do it on the birthday of a future sister wife. Fortunately, Cody's mom got involved and persuaded them to move their wedding to the day after my birthday. While I wished them all the happiness in the world, I was not as prepared as I believed myself to be. Cody and Janelle's courtship was so quick that when their wedding day arrived, I was struck by the realization that I was going to be sharing my husband. It was harder than I thought it would be. No matter how much you are committed to the principle of plural marriage, the first time the reality hits you, it's a total shock. For 3 years, Cody and I had been practically inseparable, and now there was going to be a new person in our midst, permanently. Their ceremony was simple but touching. I was happy for both of them, but I couldn't deny my own sadness, especially at the prospect of them leaving for their honeymoon. After all, Cody and I had barely been apart since we married. We spent every possible moment together. Now he was driving off for a week-long trip with another woman. No matter how hard I tried, it was difficult for me to come to terms with this. Just before Cody left for his honeymoon with Janelle, he pulled me aside and handed me some money. "This is mad money," he said. "Go out and play, spend it on whatever you want, and enjoy yourself." His gesture was so sweet and touching. My plan was to hole up in a hotel room and gorge on television viewing while I tried to make sense of my complicated feelings. Who was I now that I wasn't marrying Cody? When my mom and dad realized what I was intending to do, they insisted that I come stay at their house. I resisted at first. I couldn't imagine being around anyone and burdening them with my emotions. In the end, my parents prevailed. "This is a time when you need people around you," my mother explained. She knew, without my telling her, how much I was struggling inside. My parents were completely right. Instead of wallowing in a hotel by myself, I needed to be surrounded by family and friends. Despite my sadness, I managed to enjoy myself, which was really important because it made the week pass more quickly. Cody called me every day to check in and to tell me that he loved me. When Janelle entered the family, Cody and I were still starry-eyed regarding the principle of plural marriage, and marriage in general, so we had no idea how to prepare for the emotional and domestic reality of our new situation. I guess we just assumed that after Cody and Janelle got married and went on their honeymoon, the three of us would live in one house as a big, happy family, and everything would go back to normal. Neither Cody nor I anticipated the need to change our behavior when Janelle came into the house. We didn't consider how he might have to balance the relationship he had with me with the one he was developing with Janelle. I never took the time to think about how I should open up my space, both physical and emotional, to accommodate a new wife. I felt as if I was welcoming to Janelle, but I didn't realize at the time how different our personalities could be. We all moved into a new house about the time of Janelle's wedding, so I didn't feel like it was my house, but our house. When we were deciding who would get what bedroom, I offered Janelle the master bedroom, thinking it might be something special to have as a newlywed, while I took the small bedroom at the back of the house. I didn't realize then that Janelle wasn't the type to speak up for what she needed, so I don't know whether this was something that was important to her or even appreciated. I assumed that Janelle would feel free to behave with Cody the same way I was with him, and I didn't realize I needed to change my behavior sometimes as well. The biggest mistake we made when we married Janelle was us all moving into a house together and not giving Janelle and me the space we needed to develop and nurture our own relationships with Cody. Having us all in the same house brought Janelle face to face on a daily basis with the romantic relationship Cody and I had. We were too naive to hide our affection for each other from Janelle, and I'm afraid to say that she was confronted by it regularly, which I'm sure was both painful and awkward. At times, Cody and I would hold hands or hug each other in front of Janelle, leaving her in what was probably a very uncomfortable situation. Although Janelle is by no means as physically affectionate a person as I am, it was not healthy or fair for her to see the affection I shared with Cody. I'm sure this led to hard feelings toward me. Living together from the start ultimately shortchanged the three relationships we were trying to develop and maintain. Another reason that Cody and Janelle had difficulties laying the foundation for their marriage during that first year was that they were essentially living under a veil of secrecy. Cody was simply unable to acknowledge Janelle as his wife outside of our church community. We were very quiet and private when it came to our family life, which I'm sure didn't help Janelle feel secure in her position in the family. When we went out together, somewhere other than church associations, we always introduced Janelle as Cody's sister. I remember on more than one occasion that Cody, Janelle and I had a conversation about how to explain who Janelle was. Cody and I already lived and worked in the small community in Wyoming when Janelle joined the family, so it was Janelle whom we felt we needed to explain. Looking back, I realized it wasn't fair to Cody and Janelle's relationship to refer to her as his sister. Since Janelle's mom was married to Cody's dad, it seemed to be a reasonable explanation, and it always seemed as if Janelle was okay with this reference. I always felt a bit uncomfortable referring to her this way, but she and Cody seemed to be okay with it, so I played along. I believe it did a major disservice to Cody and Janelle's marriage. After Cody married Janelle, I went through a sort of separation anxiety. I missed the privacy of our old situation, the luxury of making a romantic dinner for just Cody and myself whenever I wanted, or renting a good movie and curling up on the couch together. These are things you simply can't do when another wife enters the picture and is living in the same house. It can be perceived as preferential treatment, and that is just not okay in a plural marriage. This anxiety put a strain on Cody's and my relationship and made me at times act unfairly to both him and Janelle. I have to admit that I didn't always handle the stress of the new situation as I should have. I didn't know how to hold back or temper my opinions. I am a very direct person, and when I have a strong opinion about something, I can be a little bit harsh. Since I see things in black and white, I have a bad habit of phrasing things in a way that can come across as aggressive. Janelle, on the other hand, is quite non-confrontational and seems to have a hard time being honest with herself, or with others, about her feelings. I'd tell Janelle that this is how it needs to be, and didn't realize I was offering her no space to voice her own concerns. I didn't intend to be mean. I wasn't even aware that I was coming across that way. I was being honest with my thoughts and feelings and just assumed she would do the same. I remember having conversations with her many times concerning everything, from how the house should be decorated to how the finances should be handled. I would tell her how I thought the situation should be taken care of, and because I had that type of personality, I just assumed she would voice her opinion as well. When I would find out later, through Cody, that there was an issue or disagreement, I was so upset that she didn't tell me her thoughts or opinions while we were having the discussion. I felt as if she was lying to me, and I felt betrayed by this. I thought we were in this marriage together to have a close, if not completely open relationship, and didn't understand why she wouldn't communicate honestly with me, when that's what I was trying to do with her. I hadn't yet learned how to be softer in the delivery of my words and not so overbearing. Naturally, the tentative friendship I had with Janelle deteriorated even more in the months following her marriage to Cody. I had hoped that, with her in the family, we would be able to work on improving our relationship. I wanted, and almost expected, to have a special sister-wife bond with Janelle. I realized early on, however, that wouldn't be the case. Janelle seemed very reserved toward me as far as becoming close friends. I felt that I had to accept that we wouldn't have the close sister-wife relationship that I had always hoped for. To make things worse, Cody had taken a job setting up new accounts for Schwann's frozen foods, which required him to be on the road for long stretches of time. This left Janelle and me at home with our growing list of complaints against each other. Since Cody was new to the principle and the practice of plural marriage, he had no idea how to negotiate between the two of us. I know he was aware of the tension between us and did his best to deal with it, but we all were going to have to sort out our new roles and learn how to live together and love one another. During the early years of our plural family, there were many emotions rolling around among all of us, mostly, I feel safe to say, between Janelle and me. In living plural marriage, you definitely have to go through a huge learning curve. Janelle and I had a lot of rough times in those early years. We both did and said things to each other that I'm sure we would like to forget. There is a lot of past history, things that I won't talk about in specifics in public out of my respect for Janelle and my desire to protect her. Even now, we still struggle with the residue of those early years. I truly hope that Janelle and I can work through some of those haunting issues of the past so they will stop recurring in our lives. Someday when we're both ready, I hope it will happen. While Janelle, through no fault of her own, brought a level of tension to the house, she also brought her own strengths to the marriage. Cody was busy with his job at Schwann's while I was engaged in my own job hunt. Janelle urged me to apply for the job as an engraver at a trophy company, a job I would hold for 10 years. Eventually, moments like that would help us appreciate what our relationship could be. The most difficult emotional battle I would face during the first year after Janelle joined our family was when she got pregnant. Cody and I had been married for 3 years, and naturally, we'd been trying to conceive. But we'd had no success. So when Janelle conceived, before I did, I was pretty devastated. Even though deep down, I had expected it, I could immediately see how thrilled Cody was by Janelle's news. While I tried to be as happy as possible about the first child coming into the Brown family, I felt betrayed by my own body. It had let me down and made me feel like both a disappointment and a failure. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, so I turned inward and started to withdraw from Cody and Janelle. At the time of Janelle's pregnancy with her first child, Logan, Cody decided to pursue a courtship with Christine. We had all become friends soon after Cody and I got married. Somehow, in the back of my mind, this courtship had always seemed inevitable. Cody's courtship with Christine was much more difficult for me than his with Janelle had been. I never felt that Janelle threatened the overall happiness Cody and I shared. Cody and Janelle were friends, very close friends. I knew Cody loved Janelle, but it was in a totally different way than he loved me. Around her, he never behaved in the silly romantic way he did with me. I found this reassuring. When Janelle came into our family, the day-to-day nature of my marriage with Cody changed, but our relationship stayed the same. Despite having added a second wife to our lives, I never felt that Cody loved me any less than the day we were married. With Christine, however, things were different. Christine was cute and energetic. She was young and girly and quite flirtatious. I had always suspected that Cody was more than a little smitten with her, and when they began to court, I could immediately sense that Cody was not just smitten, but in love. The two of them glowed around each other. They had fun with each other and loved to goof off together. Where Cody and Janelle's courtship had been less outwardly romantic, this new relationship was grounded in an undeniable emotional attraction. When Cody proposed to Christine, I suddenly felt as if I were less important to him than I had been before. I felt threatened by their relationship and the friendship they'd built over the first 3 years of my marriage to Cody. Although she was our mutual friend, I always knew that. Cody was somewhat taken with Christine. Cody seemed so much more engaged with Christine than he had been with Janelle. I think that he had learned, from the experience of bringing Janelle into the family, how he needed to behave with Christine. How much more expressive and responsive he had to be to her needs and wants. He had gained knowledge from his relationship with Janelle and seemed much wiser when it came to courting Christine. He also seemed more devoted to the cause, at least that's how it appeared to me. It cemented my feelings of inadequacy in our relationship when Cody called me only once while he and Christine were away on their honeymoon. When Christine came into our family, she chose to live in a different house rather than squeeze into the same house that Janelle and I shared. She wanted her own experience with Cody before joining the family experience, so she moved into a small cottage nearby. Even though this meant Cody would be spending several nights a week out of our house, it seemed like a healthier and more reasonable choice for everyone. Although I had a hard time with Cody and Christine's courtship, I was surprised by how easily I became friends with Christine. Of course, this didn't happen overnight, but her fun and outgoing personality livened up the mood in our household. Eventually, Christine and I discovered that we shared the same predilection for silliness, and we almost always managed to embarrass Janelle with our antics. Although Christine and I had a much easier relationship than I had with Janelle, I couldn't help my disappointment when she too became pregnant. Nearly 5 years into my marriage with Cody, I was beginning to worry that I'd never have a baby. When Christine was 4 months pregnant with her first child, Cody started urging me to take a pregnancy test. My period was a little late, but that was nothing out of the ordinary for me. Still, he wouldn't let the subject drop. Eventually, I agreed and took the test. I absolutely could not believe it when the little stripe on the stick told me I was pregnant. I was certain the test had made a mistake, but it hadn't. I could barely contain my joy. The next morning, Janelle and I drove to Christine's house to pick up her and Cody for church. I was struggling to hide my excitement. I couldn't wait to share my news with Cody, but I had to. I wanted to tell him about our baby privately, not blurted out in front of everyone in the car. Sometime in the middle of church, Cody remembered the pregnancy test. He got my attention and shot a knowing glance down at my stomach. At first I tried to ignore him, but he kept looking at my belly. Finally I just nodded. The most enormous smile I'd ever seen burst onto Cody's face, and his eyes welled up with tears of joy. Cody and I were beside ourselves with happiness. The very thing we'd been hoping for since we got married had finally happened. We were going to have our first child. The only thing that tempered my joy a little was knowing that Christine was going to have a hard time with my pregnancy. She was new in the family and 4 months pregnant with her first child, and now here I was pregnant after a 5-year struggle. I was carrying a miracle baby. I was afraid that a lot of the focus would shift from her to me. While I didn't blame her for being slightly resentful that I stole her thunder, I tried not to dwell on it. I was so excited and happy that I'd finally gotten what I'd always wanted. After Mariah was born, I was certain that I was going to have more children. My entire life, I'd always wanted 8 kids. In fact, when Cody and I started dating, this was something we talked about on a regular basis. But once I had Mariah, my body didn't want to give me any more children. Cody and I tried everything to help me conceive, from medical doctors to holistic healers, but nothing worked. The most difficult thing for me was knowing that the fertility problem lay with me, not with Cody. Since Janelle and Christine got pregnant so often and so easily, it was clear that Cody had no problem fathering children. I struggled to come to terms with the fact that I was somehow defective. Cody never once made me feel bad for the fact that I wasn't able to get pregnant again. Yet I sometimes couldn't help but feel that my sister wives used their pregnancies to validate their marriages to Cody in a way I couldn't. I know they never intentionally flaunted their fertility, but because I struggled so much with my infertility issues, I often wondered what place I had in the family. When Mariah was 12 years old, I'd pretty much given up all hope of having another child. Then, completely out of the blue, I got pregnant again. My joy, however, was short-lived, and I lost the baby after only a couple of months. I was devastated. My body simply didn't want to have any more children. I was blessed with one, and I would have to be content with that. There would be no more babies in my future. During the 12 years between Mariah's birth and my second unsuccessful pregnancy, our family went through a lot of growing pains. I know that Janelle struggled to find her path in our midst and was always on the lookout for a way to assert her own identity in such a large family with 3 wives and 12 children. We had to learn to work together and to make decisions in a way that put our family first. The root of many of our problems stemmed from 2 issues: our living situation and Cody's job. Cody was often employed in positions that required him to travel a lot, which would essentially leave the 3 wives behind, functioning as single mothers. During a period when he was on the road a lot, Janelle moved into her own house. Although she and I had been struggling under one roof for nearly 10 years, the separation of our children was difficult. For the most part, we hid our lifestyle from the public, yet there were people who were aware that we were a polygamous family. Some of these people would refer to Cody and his families. This always rubbed me the wrong way. Despite our differences, we were one big family who happened to be divided into 3 different houses. Our separation was causing an identity crisis. How can you be one unit if you are living apart? How can Cody be the best dad possible if he isn't present for all of his children all of the time? During this time, Janelle and I both had jobs while Christine took care of the majority of daycare and homeschooling. Eventually, Cody found a job in Utah that didn't require any travel. This meant that he would be present in our children's lives on a much more regular basis. While this was a major and important development in our lives, what really changed our situation and brought us together as a family was when we found a house in which our entire family could live together under one roof. The house had formerly belonged to a polygamous family. It was a large home, divided into 3 separate yet attached apartments, one for each wife. This was the perfect solution to many of our struggles. It joined us into one unshakable family. The big house allowed us to forge and cement our identity as a family. This house allowed Cody to be home with his kids every night. He would be able to see all his children equally. In other words, even if Cody was to be at my house on a particular night, he would still be able to see Janelle's and Christine's kids, tuck them in, and do all the fatherly things that would have been impossible for him if we'd still been living in separate houses. Around this time, I really started coming to terms with the fact that there were no more biological kids in my future. However, now that we were living in one house, I was able to come to a deeper appreciation of the blessings that plural marriage has provided me. While I cannot have any more children of my own, I have been able, through my sister wives, to give Mariah many brothers and sisters. She has siblings her age, peers with whom she can share all the experiences of growing up, as well as siblings who are younger and look up to her. If I hadn't chosen polygamy, if I hadn't been called to it and listened to that call, I would never have achieved the large family I'd always dreamed of having. Plural marriage has blessed me with what my body denied me. I have a wonderful relationship with all the kids in our family. Naturally, with so many children, I'm closer to some than to others. It's hard to describe my relationship to all the children who are not biologically mine. I have been an essential part of their upbringing, in the same way that Janelle and Christine have been a part of Mariah's. I may not be their biological mother, but I am a mother to them. Since I have more time on my hands and since my living area is always quite a bit more peaceful than the others, I'm the mom the kids come to when they want a little quiet time away from their siblings. They call it Merry time. It's a wonderful feeling knowing there is a huge pack of children who love me and want to hang out and have fun with me. When we moved into the big house in Utah, the one featured on the first season of Sister Wives, it was time to start working through a lot of my difficulties with Janelle. We are both incredibly devoted to our family and our faith, and despite our differences, we are committed to creating the best, safest, and warmest environment for our kids. Often people ask me if I'd be friends with my sister wives if they weren't married to my husband. This is a difficult question, but goes a long way to understanding the nature of sister wives. Janelle and I are very different people. We see the world in opposite ways and handle situations in entirely different manners. I'm sure if we weren't married to Cody, our friendship wouldn't have gone past basic cordiality. But since we share a husband, a lot of our differences are brought out into the open and confrontation is impossible to avoid. The nature of our singular relationship has forced us to confront those differences and examine the way we treat each other. While it's true that Janelle and I each chose to marry Cody, we weren't truly aware of the relationship and struggles that lay ahead. Because of our commitment to our family, we have to find a path down which we can travel together. One of the benefits of polygamy is that as you grow in the religion, you are forced to examine yourself and your treatment of others, especially your sister wives, with whom you often have complicated relationships. Polygamists and polygamous families are often works in progress. Janelle and I have never had a close relationship. We don't gossip on the phone or grab lunch in our free time. I don't think that we will ever sit down and tell each other our deep, dark secrets. But we are family, and for that reason we love each other. We've worked hard to develop a good and functional relationship because we've come to understand that this is what is best for the family. And when it comes to family, we share the same values. We are not just good with each other's kids, we absolutely love each one of them. We are devoted to our lifestyle and to the hard work we discovered it takes to make it work. We've learned that there will always be bumps in the road, but the work is certainly worth it. On February 6, 2006, my younger sister Teresa passed away after an 11-month battle with colon cancer. This was an unbelievably difficult experience for me, but it forced me to confront my own mortality. It made me realize that should something happen to me, there would be 2, and now 3 women in Mariah's life who would raise her in precisely the way I would have wished. She would be loved and cared for by a stable and miraculous family. For me, there could be no greater blessing. Despite the fact that our living situation and Cody's work situation stabilized, I still felt the need to carve out my own space in the boisterous and often chaotic Brown family. Since I only have one child, I often felt slighted in family decisions. Although I voiced my opinions perhaps a little too aggressively, I still felt as if I wasn't being taken into consideration. It's easy to lose yourself in a big family. When we lived in Wyoming when the older kids were young, Christine and I homeschooled them and handled the household upkeep. While Janelle was working full-time, Christine and I each worked part-time so that at least one of us moms could be home with the kids all the time. When we moved back to Utah when Mariah was 10, I started working immediately while Christine took on the duty of the homemaker mom. I realized that while nothing trumps my commitment to the family, it's important to have things that I can do myself and for myself. Over time, my insecurity about having only one child grew. As Mariah got older and was more independent, I began to wonder how important I was to the everyday goings-on of our family. I began to wonder if it would even matter if I wasn't around. I never really considered leaving, but was anxious about my place and function in our daily lives. I felt insignificant to myself and definitely to Janelle and Christine. To me, it didn't seem as if they saw any point to my being in the family. I knew that I would have to make some changes if I were to regain my own identity and happiness. I had always wanted to go to college, but since Cody and I married so young, I didn't give myself this chance. However, I didn't want to start school unless I had a clear idea of what I wanted to do. My family often jokes about my sudden, intuitive ideas they call popcorn thoughts, ideas that pop into my head from out of nowhere. One morning as I was getting ready for work, I had one of these so-called popcorn thoughts. I had the notion that I was going to work with at-risk youth. It completely surprised me, and I tried to push the thought aside, but as the days and weeks passed and the thought kept nagging at me, I figured I needed to pay attention to it. Finally, I told Cody about it. At first, I don't think he understood how serious I was about it, and therefore he didn't seem very supportive of me. However, the idea didn't disappear. I began to realize that I needed an outlet outside of the family. I really wanted to do something for myself, as well as something that would help others. I think that the fact that I had only one child, which made me feel at times less significant than my sister wives, really propelled me to search for something that would fulfill me. When I enrolled at Utah Valley University and took classes in counseling, Cody realized how committed I was to this new career. Both he and my sister wives were very encouraging. Everyone helped out as I balanced the demands of my new course load against those of my job and family. Eventually, I got a job working with the residential staff at a treatment center for troubled teens. I was incredibly satisfied with my job. I was eager to get my degree and start working as a counselor myself. I think that due to the space that each of us wives had for ourselves, coupled with how easy it was to come together as a large family unit in our new home, things had stabilized in our household. We had all become used to one another's quirks and differences. We all had a maturity about us because of our age and the length of time we had been together as a family raising our kids. Not all of the relationships in the house were fully functional, but we had learned how to put aside minor disagreements for the greater good. I think the fact that Janelle and I were both happy in our professions, and Christine seemed to be doing a great job at home, really added to the general happy attitude in the home. After 16 years and 13 kids, Cody, Janelle, Christine, and I had figured out who we were as a family and how to make things work. We were a well-oiled unit, and we could see this reflected in our children's happiness. Although the Brown family was functioning, my relationship with Cody was floundering. After nearly 20 years of marriage, issues that we had left to simmer had begun to boil over. Around the time that Cody and I were suffering through this low point in our marriage, we decided to take a drive together. It was a particularly good day for us, as we had been working on improving our relationship and the communication between us. We were passing by our friend Reba's house, and we stopped to say hello. A young woman, Reba's cousin, was outside loading her children into a van in order to drive back home to southern Utah. We started chatting. I felt an immediate connection to her. After we drove away, I was instantly struck by one of my popcorn thoughts. This woman is someone who will be in our lives. Of course, that woman was Robin. I shared my thoughts with Cody that night, which was the first step on the path of welcoming her into our family. Until that time, I wasn't sure if Cody would ever marry again. If he did, I would have never imagined my being so closely involved from the start. We soon discovered that Robin was divorced but believed in the principle of plural marriage. Cody and I began to talk about her between ourselves. It didn't seem necessary to bring up the subject of Robin to the rest of the family until it was more apparent that there might be a potential for courtship. So she became a little connection that Cody and I shared, a sweet special bond in a time of turmoil between us. Since things were rocky between Cody and me, it was a little unusual to consider bringing a new wife into the picture, especially given that I never ever thought that Robin would solve my problems with Cody. I just felt drawn to her in a way that satisfied me. I wanted her as a friend, and I had a clear vision of her in our lives. Janelle and Christine had not yet met her, so this little relationship between Cody, Robin, and me felt special. At first, the three of us had a wonderful friendship. But when the time came for Robin to start exploring her relationship with Cody on a deeper and more personal level, things became difficult for me. I had been instrumental in bringing Robin and Cody together, and now I wasn't needed anymore. Since Robin lived so far away, Cody had to spend much more time away from the house in order to court her. At first, he'd take a wife and a couple of kids with him on these trips, as the whole family would need to get to know Robin and her children. Eventually, it was better for him to not include the wives, as he and Robin deserved and needed time alone to build their own relationship. Robin's presence transformed from something that filled me with joy to something that made me extremely lonely, as well as feeling the love that Cody and I shared was once again being threatened. Cody and Robin started courting at the absolute low point of my marriage. Our 20-year anniversary was fast approaching, and I was learning that so much time together will either make you or break you. Cody and I have very different ways of communicating. He is happy to just stop talking about the issue and move on, never discussing it and considering it dealt with, while I really need to discuss it and achieve some kind of closure on the subject. Because of our different communication styles, Cody and I found it easier to ignore our problems instead of addressing them. Things that might have been solved quickly suddenly ballooned. Over a 20-year marriage, with all the pressures of other wives and other kids, this led to a significant amount of misunderstanding and strife between us. When Cody and Robin began courting, I realized that the two of us needed to take steps to repair our own relationship. Because I felt insignificant and insecure in my relationship with Cody, I struggled with all the time that he needed to spend with Robin and her kids in southern Utah. Again, I turned inward and began to wonder what benefit I was to this family. Cody and I were hanging by a thread and he was off courting someone else. Even though courting Robin had been partly my idea, the reality of the situation was very difficult for me. I liked Robin, and I felt a connection to her, and I wanted Cody to court her, but when it came down to it, and I was actually dealing with those emotions on top of the emotions I was already having in my struggling relationship with Cody, it became very difficult to deny the hurt. Cody and I had fallen into a vicious cycle with each other, dealing with hurt, anger, rejection, and sadness. It got to the point where we didn't really enjoy being around each other, and when we were together, we could barely say anything without setting the other off. We talked little and enjoyed each other's company even less. I felt as if Cody was shutting me out of his life almost completely. Eventually, we had to look at each other deep and hard and decide what we really wanted. How committed were we, and were we willing to fight for each other and get back what we once had? Cody and I decided together that we needed to see a marriage counselor. We needed to feel solid in our relationship as he moved on with his courtship with Robin. I know Robin was also anxious for us to mend our marriage before she came into our family. It took a long time and a lot of hard sessions with us being absolutely open and honest with each other. It was probably one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life. It was also the best thing I have ever done. This counselor helped us work through our problems and uncover a common language with which to communicate. Cody learned to be more patient with me when I brought my problems to him. He learned to let me talk them out. I was able to confront my anger and started to understand that sometimes my aggressive attitude made it difficult for Cody to listen to me. It took a lot of hard work, but now Cody and I are at our absolute best. We are still or again very much in love. It is a wonderful thing knowing that Cody is absolutely my soulmate. Our counselor had previously worked with plural families and was open and understanding about the joys and difficulties of our lifestyle. Meeting with this marriage counselor only strengthened my commitment to getting my own license so that I could use my experience in a polygamous family to help other polygamists who were struggling with themselves, their spouses, or their sister wives. When she decided to join our family, Robin took an active role in trying to forge a good relationship with me. She was patient with me and took the time to listen to me when I was struggling with my feelings and emotions. She began to see the same counselor that Cody and I did. Sometimes we did counseling as a group of 3, and sometimes Robin and I did our own couples counseling in order to work through our issues before they were allowed to fester and blow up into large-scale disagreements and struggles. The relationship between Cody and Robin was new and exciting, and I could see how happy they were together. Since Cody and I had been married for so long, and our relationship was in a different stage, added to the fact that we were in a really tough spot, it was easy for me to put the blame on Robin. In my head, I was sure that Cody wouldn't be treating me so unfairly if it wasn't for her presence in our lives. Cody was my husband, so I couldn't blame him. And surely I couldn't be at fault, so in my mind, the obvious answer was Robin. I couldn't have been more wrong. Robin and I needed to figure out how to have a healthy friendship outside of our marriages to Cody, and I had to learn not to blame Robin for my own struggles with Cody. I had to begin looking inward and admit my own shortcomings so I could improve myself. I needed to learn how to be open to seeing myself how I truly was appearing to people, and open to allowing Robin into my world. My relationships with Janelle and Christine were long-time relationships, and we were comfortable where we were, but I wasn't completely happy with either of them. Janelle and I have learned how to function well together. We don't have an extremely close relationship, but it's good. Christine and I know how to goof off and have fun together. Our relationship is good on a surface level, but has absolutely no depth to it. When I first met Robin, I knew there was a special closeness waiting for us, but I needed to learn how to be available and safe for her to want to let me in. If I hadn't been able to examine myself and be willing to begin my journey of improving myself, I wouldn't have found the sweet, close sister-wife bond that I had always hoped for. Robin and I have arrived at such a wonderful place, which is a testament to me of what a beautiful principle our family has engaged in. Sometimes, when it's Cody's night at my house, Robin and her kids will spend the evening with us, visiting or watching TV, or laughing at her little girls as they sing karaoke. I've never had to ask her to give Cody and me space. She is so sensitive and aware of what I need that she's always a step ahead. We have learned to respect each other's marriages and, out of this, our own friendship has grown beyond strong. Of course, there can always be the little, silly struggles I have with my sister wives. We are all figuring out a way to interact with Cody when the 5 of us are together in public or private. We are all uncomfortable with him being affectionate with another sister wife in front of us. When we're all together at one wife's house and the family get-together has ended, we've learned that we need to allow Cody a little time and space with each wife as she leaves to go home with her children. It would be uncomfortable for all of us to be standing there waiting to leave as he went down the line kissing each of us good night. I want more privacy than that, and I think each wife deserves the same thing. There's an emotional intimacy that Cody has with each of his wives. That is private and personal to each of us, and we need to allow one another the time and space to embrace it. Some might think that after being married for so long, it wouldn't bother us to see Cody kissing or hugging or saying I love you to someone else. It is really more a matter of respecting one another's space and relationship than it is of jealousy. It's not a hard and fast rule, but I believe that one of the key factors in being a good sister wife is having the ability to see the needs of another sister wife and considering her needs more important than your own. I have been on both the giving and receiving end, and not only does it help build my relationship with Cody, but it strengthens my relationships with all my sister wives. Also, it is very important to allow Cody and a wife to have their own relationship, not having to be bothered with outside concerns. We have a lot of family time that involves all of us, but when it's time for Cody and a wife to have their own time, I make it a habit to not call him unless it's something extremely important. Even at that, I will usually just text him and allow him to respond when it's convenient for him. For me, it's as simple as do unto others. I wouldn't want my time with Cody to be interrupted unnecessarily, so I make a point of respecting my sister wives' time with him equally. One of the benefits of plural marriage is that you are forced to confront your own weakness of character and work on being the best wife, sister, and mother you can be. I'm confident that I would not be the person I am today if I had chosen a monogamous marriage. When Robin married Cody, she thanked Janelle, Christine, and me for training him to be the guy he is now. Like myself, Cody is so much more emotionally mature than he was when we married. But Robin is not the sole beneficiary of this growth. After 22 years, Cody and I are better than ever. We share a deep and passionate love, and finally understand each other's love language. When we moved to Las Vegas, we soon discovered that we weren't going to be able to find a house both large enough for the family and with the specific qualities we needed. We decided instead on 4 separate homes so each wife and her children would have the space they needed to nurture their individual relationships with Cody, while at the same time choosing homes close enough together that we could still function as a family. While I wish for Mariah's sake that she could be closer to her siblings, I've really learned to love my space. Some days, I want the chaos of the whole family, and some nights, when Cody isn't around, I want to be able to sit up and watch TV, read a book, or work on a project as late as I want without disturbing anybody. Essentially, I have the best of both worlds. Since we moved to Las Vegas and are in separate homes with an even busier schedule than we once had, I don't always see Cody every day. In fact, recently we went 5 full days without seeing each other. With the growth that our relationship has had in the past couple of years, I often think of the saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. When I do see Cody, it always feels new and refreshing. We've missed each other, and we are delighted to see each other. When we go to family reunions and I see my family members who are monogamists, I often wonder, how can you have your husband around all the time? When do you have time for yourself? I can't imagine their lifestyle, but then again, they can't understand mine either. I would never trade my experience with sister wives and the wonderfully large and dynamic family we share for the simplicity of monogamy. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.